Okay, we are going to get started. And welcome everyone to our Black History program. We thank everyone for coming. We thank everyone on Teams for joining us virtually. We just wanted to give a shout out to all of our guests, but we'll talk about them a little bit further in our program. But first, I'll just introduce myself first. My name is Cindy Bradford. I am the chairperson here at the Black Employment Program here at the Joseph Maxwell Cleland Atlanta VA Medical Center. So again, I thank you, and we're going to have our opening remarks and our welcome by our chaplain here at the VA, Mr. Anthony Lee.
Greetings and God bless everybody. My name is Anthony Lee. I'm a chaplain that works in the ICU here at the Atlanta VA. And I wanted to share a little bit about special emphasis programs and their meaning, and maybe a little bit of history too. Do we have time for that?
Of course,
maybe.
go ahead.
All right. We're all here today because of our special emphasis programs initiative in the federal government. Special emphasis programs were established by the federal government to remove barriers and to create equal opportunity for groups that are traditionally not represented or subjected to discrimination in the workforce. Special emphasis programs were strengthened by two executive orders. In 1969, Executive Order 11478, Equal Employment Opportunity in the Federal Government, established the Equal Employment Opportunity Program and implemented the policy of the federal government to provide equal opportunity in employment to all individuals, regardless of race, color, religion, gender, national origin, disability, or age. Then in 2011, Executive Order 13583, establishing a coordinated government-wide initiative to promote diversity and inclusion in the federal workforce, enhanced several executive orders, including EO 11478, by establishing that as the nation's largest employer, the federal government has a special obligation to lead by example in attaining a diverse, qualified workforce. Our nation derives strength from the diversity of its population and from its commitment to equal opportunity for all. Therefore, a commitment to equal opportunity, diversity, and inclusion is critical for the federal government as an employer. Special emphasis programs are an integral part of the VA. Their purpose is to ensure that agencies take affirmative steps to provide equal opportunity to everyone in all areas of employment and eliminate discriminatory practices and policies. Through various initiatives, the programs address the unique concerns of specific groups in achieving diversity, inclusion, and equality in opportunity in recruitment, hiring, development, training, and advancement. In addition to our Black Employment Program, we also have the American Indians and Alaska Natives Program, the AAPI program, the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders Program, Federal Women's Program, Hispanic Employment Program, Individuals with Disabilities Program, and the LGBTQ Program. Basically, the goal of special emphasis programs is to promote diversity and awareness and cultural sensitivity, to demonstrate an interest in the history and culture of employees and their contributions to society and the department, to reflect sensitivity to the growing diversity of the workforce, and to offer opportunities for employees to gain experience in leadership and program planning. If you would like to learn more about the Black Employment Program, you could see Miss Cindy Bradford over here. Let's give her a warm welcome and thank her for organizing this event.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. We appreciate you. And now, without further ado, we're going to go along with our program. And we're going to have, their group is called Bokai Inde. And they are a community dance team. They've been dancing for 7 to 10 years. They receive awards in the Juneteenth celebration, and they're going to kind of elaborate a little bit more. but I did want to just welcome them, welcome their dance team. They were so willing to come and to participate, and I have seen clips of them dancing. They are amazing. So without further ado, let's give a round of applause for Bokai Ende.
Greetings, everyone. First of all, Miss Cindy, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to correct her. We are a drumming community drum team first. Dancing is the extra, the icing on the cake. So I don't want y'all to be expecting the dancing to be as good as the drumming. But thank you for that. First of all, I want to say thanks for your service. This is an amazing event. We're happy to be a part of it. I have family and friends that have been in the military. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here today. I'd like to just especially talk about Baba Youssef, our master drummer. He's known as a master drummer all over the world. He teaches, he makes the drums, tunes the drums, teaches the lessons, gives of his heart and his time all the time. And we usually start out, we consider the drum the heartbeat of our soul, so we don't like to start our program without getting permission from the eldest person in the building. But before that, I'd like to also, he's gonna kill me for this, we have a celebrity in the building, the original member of the SOS band, who is also a VA member. Salute to him if you wanna stand up, he is in the building. Thank you for coming. And he is a VA as well. Yes, so Blue is on the drums to the right, new to Atlanta, one of the dancers that's coming out now. Her name is Miss Gigi. She has her own yoga and African dance program. She does midnight yoga for people with sleep disorders. She's new to our group as well. So thank the both of you. And here we are, Bokai Ende. I want to tell you Bokai Ende means of one family. We're all of one family. You know, one heart, one mind, one soul when we work together for the good of our community. So thanks for the opportunity. And our first piece is gonna be called Cuckoo. Our second piece is gonna be called Manjani. And the third piece is called John Don Wallace Saddam. Thank you. And thank you, Miss Cindy, again. the second piece is Minjani, but I forgot to find out who the oldest in the building is. We started it. I went back on my word. I know we can start with Baba Yusuf. He's 82. Is anyone older than 82 in here? Oh, you're older than 82. We were supposed to get your permission. Do you mind me coming back here to get your permission for us to drum? Even though we kind of started before? Okay, this is what we do before we start our drum session. Sorry, I was a little nervous because it's usually a lot of us, and because it's during the workday, only you get the few of us. But we need your honor, sir. Yes. Oh yes. I wouldn't have came all the way back here then. Thank you. Yes, we seek permissions from the elders. That is the correct terminology. Thank you, sir. We must seek permission from the elder to begin our drumming. So forgive us for starting prematurely. Oh, you can stay. Yep, we want to honor you in this next piece. And tell us your name. Tell us how old you are, and then we seek your permission to drum.
My name is Ambassador Theodore Roosevelt Britton, Jr. I'm 98 years old. And I'm a member, or rather, I integrated the Marine Corps in World War II. I also came back in the Korean War, so I'm a veteran of 2 wars. Not only that, I started off working at the VA as a CPC 1 in 1946, 78 years ago.
Wow.
Thank you.
All right, this next piece dedicated to you on the name of Baukande.
That is awesome. Thank you again, Bokai Ende. We appreciate you. They're going to be coming after the program, and they're going to be doing some more things as people leave. But again, we want to thank you. Thank you for coming so much. We are going to go further in our program. And without further ado, I'm not going to read this long bio because they're going to come and they're going to present in the way that they do. But I do want to give honor to, of course, our ambassador, Ambassador Theodore Britton, for coming here today to the Atlanta VA. He is the ambassador that was born in October 17th, 1925 in South Carolina, and he has been one of the first African Americans selected to join the U.S. Marine Corps. And again, his bio is extremely long, and as it should be. He is our honor, and we take honor in having him here today. And he's going to come forth, and also he is also accompanied by Mr. Johnny Higdon. Mr. Johnny Higdon is the president of the Atlanta chapter of the National Montford Point Marine Association, and he's had a 30-year career in the U.S. Marine Corps, and his role has been the installation sergeant major of the Marine Corps and based in Albany, Georgia. He also have a long list in his bio that he's going to be coming forth as he does as well. So without further ado, let's give a round of applause, and also let's stand up and welcome Ambassador Theodore Britton.
Thanks, folks. I have a lot to tell you because you need to know some history, and so I don't want to take up a lot of time. You know, the best introduction I ever had was the Governor General of Barbados, accompanied by a lady whom you all knew. And he simply said, when he came to me with her, he said, "Your Majesty, His Excellency, Mr. Britton." That said it all. She was the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II. But listen, I wanted to tell you something. By the way, I think I mentioned that I started off at the VA, my very first job in 1946 as a CPC-1. I was making $754 a year. I lasted about 7 or 8 months. From that point on, I went into college. I returned to government some years later as a GS-17, at $32,146. So much for college. Tell your kids, if they don't want to stay a CPC-1, go to college. They'll come back somebody. I ended up at executive level 5. But I will tell you this, can you hear me, Monty? Yes. Okay. When I joined the VA, I was a messenger, and what my job was to read the letters coming in from veterans asking for help, and on that basis, I would take their letters around to the different departments to be serviced. They would invite them to come in and so forth. Apparently I don't need it, I don't think. Anyway, there was a fellow, a white Marine, who served with me, and he taunted me, harassed me, and everything, told me about how we had done nothing in the Marine Corps, we had not fought any battles or anything like that, and he really made me feel miserable. Poor guy, he didn't know, but I didn't know either. The thing was set up so that we couldn't do anything. For example, President Roosevelt signed the executive order in 1940 indicating that we should be participating in the war effort, everybody. But it wasn't until August 26, 1942, that the first black Marine was allowed to enter the Marine Corps base. Okay, but the Marine Corps was governed by an Army War College doctrine that described us in this way. Listen carefully. By the way, let me stop. During the Vietnam War, 5 black Marines gave their lives to save other Marines. They saw bombs or grenades coming towards them, and they took a dive on these grenades to save the lives of their fellow Marines, who happen to have been white, by the way. So it said something about the bravery of these men, and I want to call their names because they're important to me. James Anderson Jr. of California, Rodney Davis of Georgia, Ralph Johnson of South Carolina, Oscar Austin of Arizona, Robert H. Jenkins of Florida, and the last one did not give his life. That was John L. Canley, Sergeant Major. He saved so many men in his command. He was commanding all white troops in Vietnam. We were out in San Diego this past weekend to dedicate one of the largest ever ships I've ever seen in honor of John L. Canley. The 10 white men who fought to get him that medal fought for 13 years to convince the government to award him the Medal of Honor. He was the only black Marine to receive the Medal of Honor in history and to stand there to receive it. So these men, I pay my respects to them, particularly one, Rodney Davis. When Rodney Davis was brought home to Macon, Georgia, there was a law that no black person could be buried within the city limits. And so Rodney Davis had to be buried outside of the city limits. One of the men, white, who happened to have been saved by Rodney Davis's brave action, happened to come to visit his gravesite, and he was horrified and outraged, so much so that he complained to the city authorities. They changed the law. He raised $40,000, which the city matched, and now when you come down Interstate 75, on the west side of the highway, you will see a beautiful set of USMC initials, and you'll see a grave site that's lit 24 hours a day. That's Rodney Davis, a black man, a black Marine. All because they appreciated what he did. But I want to get on to what some of the other things that faced us when we came in 1942. I came in January 14, 1944. In the Marine Corps. I came out in May 9th, 1951. Would you believe that in those years I never shook hands with a black officer? In November 10th, 1945, one black officer was commissioned and promptly discharged because there was a regulation 321 that no black person could be superior to a white person in the Marine Corps. I'm telling you this now not to get mad or anything like that or say these are bad people or something, but so that you know your history, because, you know, if you're not careful, this history can repeat itself. And you end up wondering what's going on. Well, anyway, let me read this to you. And this is from the Army War College regulations that the Marine Corps adopted. The Negro does not perform his share of civil duties in time of peace in proportion to his population. He has no leaders in industrial or commercial life. He takes no part in government. Compared to the white man, he is inferior, admittedly of inferior mentality. He is inherently weak in character. Okay, and here me says another one. If he makes good, he will have the opportunity eventually to fight in the war with all Negro organizations. By the way, in 1948, the Marine Corps wanted to establish an all-black trucking company in Harlem. And I raised hell about it. Not because I don't want to serve with brothers, but the guys wanted to be in infantry, they wanted to be in tank companies, they wanted to be in communication companies. But here they were told that they were only going to be in a trucking company. But let me give you the last two. And the mobilization plan provides for approximately 140,000 Negroes for non-combat duty. This could leave approximately 30,000 for the experiment of combat duty. The majority of Negroes left at home will be in the southern states, where they will be needed for labor and where they can be under the be handled by competent whites. Okay, this is what we faced when we came into the Marine Corps in 1942. 1942, the Marine Corps said that it did not want us. Given a choice of 5,000 whites or 250,000 blacks, it would take the 5,000 whites. Okay, I have a saying, too soon we get old and too late smart. Too soon we get old and too late smart. I have another one that I've developed over these 98 years. It is equal opportunity means equal responsibility. Today, the Secretary of Defense happens to be a black man, graduate of West Point, a four-star general. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff happens to be a black man, 4 stars, and a flyer, a pilot. So there's been a great deal of changes. It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been that people just welcomed us with open arms. We had to fight for it. I marched with Martin Luther King. He used to speak at my church, the great Riverside Church in New York, on a regular basis. But we came in. At first we had white drill instructors, and some of them were a little bit mean. They didn't know that they were being mean because they thought that was the way you're supposed to act towards black folks. It has changed over the years. In those days, you could insult us and get away with it, and even when you went into the courts, the judge would insult you. That doesn't happen these days. It doesn't happen these days. So there's been a lot of changes, and it's been a wonderful set of changes. My situation, I had a black drill instructor, and by the same token, I think I was sort of lucky. When I went to New York from South Carolina, I was kind of smart, and I was a little bit ahead of my time. But when I went to New York, everybody in New York knew that black children were not as smart as northern children from the South. So I was put back 3 years. And I stayed there for about 3 months when my father lost his job and we had to move downtown in Manhattan in the white section. Well, it happened that this particular little section was inhabited by kids from the West Indies. And everybody knew that the kids from the West Indies were smarter than those from New York and from the States as such. So guess what? Back up I went. Okay, not only that, for some reason, and I often say that I was blessed with you might say a non-threatening personality. I don't make people mad, at least I hope I don't. But the teachers were awfully nice to me. In high school, one of the teachers took me under his wing and said, "Britton, I want you to be a gentleman and a scholar." I didn't know what the heck a gentleman and a scholar was. But anyway, for 3.5 years that I was under him, he constantly talked about it. By the way, it's on YouTube, by the way. So anytime you want to teach your kids, especially young boys, something about being a gentleman and a scholar, please introduce them to it. Not because of it's me, but rather that because it's something that our kids need to know about. Manners used to be taught. They're not taught anymore. And we pay for it in many ways. But anyway, this teacher took care of me. He always gave me a lot of latitude. He praised me. He taught me a lot of things. He was white, by the way. But when I went in the Marine Corps, for some reason, the drill instructors never messed with me. And the officers always were very deferential to me. So I had a good time in the Marine Corps. I learned an awful lot. I used to be given a copy of every book that came into the organization. And so I read. I'm rich today. Not money-wise, although I can't complain. But I will say this. I have knowledge, gosh, that really surpasses so many things. In any conversation, I can stand my way. And for those of you who plan to reach 98 or more, the worst thing is to be sitting around old and can't contribute to a conversation because you don't know what's going on. Read while you can read, so that when you get at a certain age, you can be part of the conversation too. Otherwise, people will leave you sitting in the hall or sitting in the bedroom or something with a glass of warm milk and a cookie. But as I say, try to learn as much as you can so that you're part of a conversation. Now, today, the Marine Corps has three four-star generals on duty. 2 are white, 1 is black. Can you imagine that? It took us 40 years to get a black general in the Marine Corps. 40 years, a 1-star. And now, I was just out in California. Guess who is commanding general of the Marine Corps Recruit Depot for all of the western part of the United States? A young brother with 1 star. He looked like a teenager. But then again, everybody looks like a teenager, including you, sir. Because when you get up there, you're something. Now, I, for some reason, was made to feel that I wanted to be somebody with this gentleman who was such a great person in my life. My folks only went to 2nd grade. In South Carolina, there were no high schools or elementary schools out in the sticks, in the rural areas. Only the churches taught you something. My folks didn't know anything, not very much. My father even signed my Social Security card, and I had to go down to the Internal Revenue and explain to them why I didn't show a certain income, a job. And I said, oh, that's where my father worked. But as I say, I had to depend on these folks to educate me, and they did what I thought was a damn good job. I do have a doctorate of laws from the University of Albania. I also have the Mother Teresa Medal from Albania. Mother Teresa is Albanian. And this one is the Congressional Gold Medal.
Wow.
We were given it in 2012. George Washington was the first recipient of this medal. He was the first American officer to free a city from the British. And Marian Anderson was the first one. Oh, you know the name Marian Anderson? Okay. Does anyone know the name Dory Miller? One of my friends, who happens to be white, called me the other day and said, I just heard that a black man that a big aircraft carrier is going to be named in honor of a black man. And I said, and his name is Dory Miller. He said, you know him? Yeah, right, I know him. I was walking to school when I heard the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. Dory Miller, who was a messman, forbidden to touch a gun, shot down 5 Japanese planes. He never got the Medal of Honor. 24 men who were killed on that first onslaught did get the Medal of Honor. They were white. Dory Miller ultimately got the Navy Cross, and he died a year later aboard a ship. But the largest ever aircraft carrier ever built is going to be named the USS Dory Miller. Not only that, it's the only one named in honor of an enlisted man. We've come a long way as a country, a heck of a long way. To see how we're acting these days, we get along with each other by and large, but at the same time realize and remember things can change back. When we talk about the Negro did not have any leadership roles in industry and commerce, of course he didn't. We were kept from it. You know what? They didn't realize that unions were beginning to be powerful. And A. Philip Randolph threatened the government with a shutdown if they didn't allow us to come in and fight along with everybody else and to have our share of the casualties and what have you. So, as I say, too soon we get old and too late smart. But, on the other hand, when we are given the opportunity, we have to take the responsibility. When I see fellow Marines being killed in different places, I want to see the Montfort Point group send a letter of condolence to the Commandant of the Marine Corps. When I hear some of the problems being suffered by, say, the Defense Department or something like that, I want our guys to stand up and exercise their responsibility. It's our Marine Corps, it's our Navy, it's our Air Force, it's our Coast Guard, it's our government, and all of you are part of it. You are owners of the government. So, again, when you get the responsibility, please make sure that you exercise it. So, I just wanted to share these thoughts with you and to say thank you so much for being here today. You're here because you're interested, and I'm so grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we thank you, Ambassador Britton, for joining us and that wealth of knowledge. I don't know about you, but I can listen to him all day and his stories. But without further ado, we're going to have Mr. Johnny Higdon, and he's going to come. And he's the president again of the Atlanta Chapter 5 in Montfort Point Marine in the associations. Let's welcome him.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I get myself in trouble all the time because I have to follow the ambassador. So bear with me as I get through my presentation. But clearly, the star of the show was right there. Again, thank you all, VA, Cindy, Mr. Curry, David. There you go, David, for inviting us here to share this wonderful story with you all. Again, I am the president of the Atlanta chapter, and my absolute mission is to get this story in front of as many audiences as possible because, again, it's a story that a lot of people don't know about, and we want to make sure that they get their due diligence as well as other organizations who've helped pave the way. So without further ado, I have a small presentation that I want to show you all to get kind of a little teaser trailer of some of their service, and we'll get right into that, and we'll pick up after that.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They are endowed not by acts of parliament, not by acts of kings and queens and princes of earth, not by the Emancipation Proclamation, not by the Civil Rights Act, but by God with certain unalienable rights. And among them are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is these common values and ideals that unite us today. It was these ideals that broke 168 years of Marine Corps segregation on August 26, 1942. It was these ideals that brought 20,000 African-American men through the gates of Montfort Point Camp. They came from all walks of life. They came to prove that patriotism is indeed colorless.
The Montfort Point Marines were a project. They were allowed into the Marine Corps to prove that they could not be Marines.
My brother George, we came home after boot camp and told me all about it. I said, well, I'm going to follow in his footsteps, so that's what I did. I forged my mother's signature and signed up right out of high school. 17 and a half.
They were the best and the brightest and the toughest. And I said, that's me.
For a long time, the guys who served tried to tell everybody our story, but nobody was listening.
I'm trying to blank all that stuff out because it wouldn't fit.
The Marine Corps didn't want you to know. It's just that simple.
But this is not just Marine Corps history or black history. It's American history, and the world needs to know about the Montfort Point Marines.
All right, the world indeed needs to know about the Montfort Point Marines. So the video you just watched is a brief 2-minute segment of a 28-minute long video that tells the story of the Montfort Point Marines from the time that they were allowed to serve in the Marine Corps, of course, till present time today. The QR code on the screen gets you to the link to it, or as well as looking up the YouTube channel. But please go there and watch the video. I promise you won't be disappointed. It's a great watch. So who are the Moffett Point Marines? As the ambassador so eloquently stated, these are the first black Marines. These were the first black men allowed to serve in the Marine Corps. So the year was 1941, years after the Civil War had ended and blacks were given the right to vote. There was still one thing in the country they weren't allowed to do, and that was serve in our nation's military. Blacks were being prevented from serving, and as he pointed out with the War College memo of 1925, for reasons of they thought that blacks were inferior to whites, that we just couldn't cut it, so to speak. So blacks were not allowed to serve in our nation's military. And what that really means is that we weren't even allowed to die for the country. That's basically what they said. But again, civil rights activists mounted pressure on the administration and threatened to march on Washington. And eventually, the Roosevelt administration passed the Executive Order 8802, which basically authorized all citizens to be able to serve in our nation's military, regardless of race, creed, color, and national origin. So that, in essence, was how the Moffett Point Marines were born. This same executive order also helped the Tuskegee Airmen, led to the success of Tuskegee Airmen as well. But this is what officially allowed minorities to serve in our nation's military. But of course, as with change, this wasn't a popular idea. As you can see the headline back in those days, no one wanted this to happen. Again, the War College memo was resonating with everyone, so they thought that blacks couldn't handle this, so clearly they didn't want to make this happen. There was one person in particular who didn't want this to happen. This was the Commandant of the Marine Corps. If any of my veterans here know, when I say the Commandant of the Marine Corps, this was the highest ranking military officer in the Marine Corps. So he was in charge of the Marine Corps, and he had a quote at that time frame when he told he was getting blacks in the Marines. If there were a question of me having a Marine Corps of 5,000 whites or 250,000 Negroes, he'd rather have the whites. So this is the headwind that the Moffett Pointers were going into. Their own military, their own Marine Corps, did not want to have them as a part of their service. But thankfully, this was an executive order. He couldn't control it. He had to make this happen. Now, but what he could control is how it happened. So at the time, just like today, Marines serve in one or two places. We trained in one or two places. East Coast, we trained in Parris Island, South Carolina, and on the West Coast, we trained in California. Well, with the black Marines, because of segregation, they said, no, you're not going there with the white Marines. So they carved out a little place outside of Camp Lejeune called Moffett Point Camp. Moffett Point Camp. Today, if anybody familiar, it's called Camp Johnson today. But Moffett Point Camp was a little-known little training facility outside of Camp Lejeune. It was nothing but trees and swamp at the time. And to make matters worse, the black Marines had to actually go and build their camp. They had to go and build their camp in order to even have a place to train. So a bunch of makeshift huts made up the camp, and so this is where they trained in a segregated facility away from the Marine Corps. Again, it was an experiment they thought was going to fail, but there were other rules as well. For instance, if they wanted to go on main side Camp Lejeune, they couldn't go unless they were accompanied by a white Marine. They were often arrested for impersonating Marines. Remember, before this time, the law of the land was blacks couldn't serve in the military. So if these blacks went out into the community in their uniform, the local police didn't know about the order, so they would arrest them thinking they were impersonating a Marine. So they got arrested. Still had to ride the back of the bus. And of course, as the ambassador stated, they could not be in charge of whites. So that presented a problem because our first black officer, Frederick Bretz, had to resign his commission because that violated the rule, the previous rule, couldn't be in charge of whites. As we know in the military, all officers are ranked and in charge of our enlisted Marines. So the junior officer is in charge of the most senior enlisted. Well, this violated that because that means he had to be in charge of whites. So based on discrimination, he had to resign his commission. So of course, all that was left for them to do is train. So all they could do was train. They trained hard, they trained often, and they got quite good at it. They got so good, in fact, they started breaking records that were held by white Marines. Right? That landed them, of course, into combat, because remember, World War II was still going on. So eventually they made their way into combat. But even in combat, they tried to hold them back by saying they could only do support roles, cooks, ammo handlers, litter bearers. But we all know what happens in war. The fighting gets fierce and casualties start to mount. So as these black Marines would come in with resupplies, here they are, fresh troops with weapons. They made their way to the front lines. And of course, they got good at it. They fought good, they held their own. They got so good, in fact, that the new commandant had a famous quote now. The new commandant stated about the black Marines, the Negro Marines are no longer on trial, they're Marines, period. That, in essence, ended the experiment on the Moss Point Marines because they had proven that they were just as worthy of the title Marine as their white counterparts. So, of course, we all know the war ended in 45, and what happened when the war ended. We know the results of that, of course, that we were victorious. Our troops came home to a hero's welcome. Remember the famous photos of the ticker tape parade, and of course, who can forget the iconic photo of the sailor kissing the woman in the middle of the street. So this is the welcome our troops got when they came home. Almost. Our black troops got a different treatment. So what happened? The community thought that the black troops were going to bring their newfound experience back and start demanding equal rights. So they decided to take the law in their own hand. Mobs and posses started forming all over the country, and they would seek out these veterans to try to keep them in their place. Lynchings increased, public beatings increased tenfold. It got so bad, of course, because it would make the headlines of the paper, that it forced the new administration to pass another executive order, 9981, which ended segregation in the military and forced all military units to train together. So that's what ended the Montfort Point camp as a training facility. So this is why we say we credit the Montfort Point Marines with their successful experiment with ending segregation in the military. If you take it one step further, we know that the military is usually a test bed for what happens in our civilian society. So years later, segregation also ended in our civilian sector as well. So of course, the Montfort Point Marines are credited with taking the Marine Corps to look like this. They infused it with a Marine Corps that looked like that. And of course, today we have a Marine Corps that looks like this. And by embracing diversity, we left with arguably the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. That's the United States Marine Corps. That's no offense to my Army brothers and sisters here. All right, so we love y'all too. We love y'all too. We can debate that another day. Of course, they also paved the way to a lot of great accomplishments in the Marine Corps. We had our first black three-star general and first black pilot, Lieutenant General Frank Peterson. Our first black female officer, Ann Grimes. The first black Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, as the ambassador mentioned, Sergeant Major Alfred McMichael. I served on his watch. And of course, we finally broke a glass ceiling 2 years ago. The Marine Corps promoted its first black four-star general. Can you imagine that? Literally just 2 years ago. Our first black four-star general was promoted in the Marine Corps, General Langley. And of course, in 2011, President Obama signed the Congressional Gold Medal that was authorized to the Montfort Point Marines. It was issued in 2012. And of course, there was a big ceremony up at headquarters of the Marine Corps where our leadership, along with the Montfort Point, about 300 Montfort Pointers showed up, and they were all presented with this medal. Now, of course, the standing legacy of the Montfort Pointers, we have a memorial, a monument and memorial that immortalizes their legacy outside of Camp Johnson to this day. It's just outside the gates of Camp Johnson. The ironic piece of this photo is this memorial is this. In the 40s, Jacksonville didn't want them there. Excuse me, Jacksonville didn't want them in the city. They didn't want them there. They wouldn't fit to be in their city. Today, this memorial is clearly the number one attraction in the city. And they're welcome there in open arms now. So that's a little bit of irony about that memorial there. So let me pivot now to the actual Montfort Point Marine Association. All right. So again, the Montfort Point Marine Association, we're here to preserve the legacy of the Montfort Pointers, all volunteer nonprofit 501c3 organization, established in 1965, 29 active chapters in 20 states across the country. Membership in our association is open to all veterans who honorably serve at least 90 days, regardless of your branch, and of course, regardless of race, creed, color, and national origin. This, of course, is my team here, Atlanta Chapter 5. You see, of course, Ambassador Britton leading the way up front. This is our team. This is a segment of our team. This is a photo from one of our last banquets that we held last year. Our mission is to preserve the legacy of the Montfort Point Marines by conducting community engagement activities aimed at educating the public on their service and sacrifice. Now, we have a two-part mission, and I'll get to that second part here in a second. When we talk about community engagement activities, we're talking about things like this, cemetery cleanup projects. Now, the ambassador mentioned about Sergeant Rodney Davis. you kind of see a little bit of that memorial that's in that photo here, where this is the actual cemetery where he's buried at. And as you see the state of the cemetery. Why? Because when they were buried there, today there's no perpetual care. This was a segregated cemetery at the time. There's hundreds of veterans buried there in this cemetery. So we organize volunteers throughout the year, and we go down and we lend our expertise to help try to put a state of police on the cemetery so it's worthy of the veterans' final resting place. Veteran services and support. Clearly, we try to work with agencies like the VA to make sure that our Marford Pointers and all veterans receive the best, the most up-to-date information that impacts their benefits and things that impact their families as well. Speaking engagements, we're also out in the community where we're talking to schools, doing parades, military organizations, or youth in general. We're out in the community and we're telling this story. And of course, we offer scholarship as well. All right, no affiliation need be. Just need to be a high school senior with plans to go to college on a 3.0 GPA. And of course, that goes into a pool. We pick the best of the bunch, and we issue a $1,000 scholarship to offset some of the cost of education. Now, I said we have a two-part mission. All right, here in Atlanta Chapter 5. The second part of our mission is the Congressional Gold Medal Program. Now, we talked about the Marford Pointers being awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 2012. There were approximately 20,000 Marford Pointers that served at Marford Point Camp between 1942 and 1949 before the training was integrated. Those are who we identify as what we call the original Marford Pointers. These gentlemen were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. To this date, we've only identified just over 3,000 of them. Just over 3,000 have been identified and presented with the Congressional Gold Medal. So this is the mission of our organization, is to find these Marford Pointers. Now, the ambassador being 98 years old, we know that he's one of the rare exceptions to the rule, but most of them are long since gone. Most of them are long since gone. So our goal is to find their families, and ensure they know the legacy their loved one contributed to the wealth of this nation. So this is the last living Marford Pointer we found here in Atlanta. This is Dr. Shelton. And his family reached out to us by hearing our story. We were able to confirm his paperwork, his service documentation, and verify he was an original Marford Pointer. And we were able to go out and present him with the Congressional Gold Medal to him in front of his family. It was an amazing feat. Now, a funny story is when we were there presenting his Congressional Gold Medal, another gentleman walked up to me, showed me a photo on his phone, and it was a picture of a tombstone that said World War II veteran Marine Corps. World War II Marine Corps veteran. It was Dr. Shelton's nephew, so his dad also served. And they actually went together to boot camp on the buddy program. So we were able to validate his records as well, and that's him in the middle. And at our last banquet, we presented 5 Congressional Gold Medals to the family of these gentlemen. And of course, that's Eric Shelton in the bottom right corner. That's Dr. Shelton's nephew. And all because he heard our story and had a picture of his father's tombstone that helped us validate his service as well. So again, this is our lasting mission, is to try to find these Marford Pointers and present them with the Congressional Gold Medal as a symbol of appreciation from the nation. So how can you all help? Again, clearly our membership is open to anyone, all right? As long as you honorably serve for at least 90 days and have a passion for what we do, please join our team. Volunteer at our events. Again, we assemble volunteers throughout the community when we have events, and we would love to have you a part of that to help out and lend your expertise. Speaking engagements such as this gives us a platform to tell their story. All right, we want to tell their story to as many audiences as possible, because the goal is for the conversation to continue. At the dinner table, in different circles, people start asking that question: did my loved one serve as a Marford Point Marine? And that helps us validate their service. And of course, sponsorship opportunities. We want to partner with anyone who's able to use their platform to help us tell this story. Of course, social media is a big platform that we use quite often. We know that that's where the audience is, so we do everything in our power to get the word out through social media. So if you see us out there on social media, please like, share, and follow our information so we can increase our audience who knows about the Marford Point Marines. Of course, real briefly, future projects that we do here. We have a golf tournament that we do every year. We actually partner with the Tuskegee Airmen. It's a golf tournament down in Stockbridge, Georgia, at Eagles Landing, and we partner with the Tuskegee Airmen. So we beat up on the Air Force. Let me just call it what it is. And we partner with them, so again, to bring recognition to both organizations. But it's just a way for veterans to come together. It's open to the public, of course, but for veterans to come together, because we all know veterans love a little rivalry, a little competition. But the Marines did win last year. We're going to win again this year. But that's one of our projects that we do. Youth Team Building Camp. We host a camp down in the same area. It's actually throughout the metro Atlanta area, but this year it's going to be down in the McDonough-Stockbridge area, where we bring youth in and talk to them about the power of team building and teamwork, because that's something they're going to be integral in their lives as they go out throughout their lives. So Youth Team Building Camp we host. And of course, our association hosts a national convention every year throughout the country. And Atlanta is working on bringing that convention right here to Atlanta in 2025. So stay tuned for more info on that. It's going to be a real big deal. Again, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Our website's on the screen. Our email's on the screen. Please share this story about the Mouth Point Marines. And if you got any information about anyone you think may be a Mouth Point Marine, please reach out to us, and we will do our due diligence to get them verified and present them or their families with the Congressional Gold Medal. Thank you all.
Wow, what a wealth of knowledge. We thank you, Mr. Higdon, for
Thank you
coming
all.
and sharing all that information. It's a lot of stuff. This is an amazing moment, especially for this month of Black History, right? So we thank you for that. We thank you again, Ambassador Britton, for coming. We're going to be closing. Just remember also we have ethnic food samples, so we have some food for everyone. It's going to be out by the elevator. But last but not least, we're going to have our closing remarks from Mr. David Curry. He's our Equal Employment Opportunity Manager here at the Atlanta VA, and he's going to come and he's going to close this program out. Also, as everyone's going to be talking, and I'm sure they're going to be taking pictures with Ambassador Britton, Bokayende, they're still going to be coming to do their drum and dancing as well. So yes, you all can speak with Mr. Britton and also Mr. Higdon after the program is over. And please get some food. It's sponsored by the Veteran Canteen Service. Mr. Curry.
Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I'm not going to utilize the microphone because after following Ambassador Britton and Mr. Higdon, they have reignited the latent Marine in me that I redact to come here at work. If you're unfamiliar with that, I am part of Ambassador Britton's legacy. So thank you very much, personally and professionally. Giving you all some insight with that. Again, the 20,000 Marines that started the integration in the United States Marine Corps afforded me the opportunity to go to Parris Island to be in Follow Series Platoon 3069, 3rd Battalion, which is the best battalion out there. See? Sorry, Major Nose. Best battalion out there. But one of the things that I do want to emphasize the most, just like Ambassador Britton said, even during the modern time that I went through, I still went through hurdles with just being who I am as a person. So one thing that I will let you know, Ambassador Britton, one of the MOSs that you listed that Marines were not able to fight in combat work, I am a retired Marine tanker. So I have fought 4 tours in both countries. Our modern day of World War II, I fought in Iraq multiple times. Every major offensive, the Marine Corps fought there. I was personally there, frontline, and also in Afghanistan as well. But again, I never would have been able to do that if it wasn't for Marines like you. So again, thank you. I'm trying not to get choked up here. But again, it is very important that we learn our history. And just like the opening remarks part that were given by Ms. Bradford and mentioned a little bit about the Special Emphasis Program with Chaplain Lee that came up here, again, our job is to give the information to enrich and make you all educated. With that being said, one of the other things, Ambassador Britton, I am definitely very familiar. In my time, it was Camp Johnson. It's right off Lejeune Boulevard. You could take 24, or you could take Western and make a right and go down there. I will let you know that police services does enforce the speed limit very well, so please do not speed. But with that, some of those hurdles, just like Ambassador Britton said, hey, you're not as good as some of your other counterparts. Hey, the Marines that instructed me at Parris Island, the Marines that instructed me in MOS school and presentations that I got, that inspired me. I was told I wasn't good enough. I can't let you know that, hey, I did go to Camp Johnson and go to FSIC, and then from there, like any Marine, and since we're emphasizing Black History Month, any Black Marine as myself, I not only mastered that school and graduated with honors, I went to every other branch school to learn how to give platform presentations in all of them to make sure that I am the best of the best to come back and deliver information to my Marines and take that forward to the front line. So again, there's a wealth of knowledge even within here, within our healthcare system, but it all comes through effective communication. So again, thank you all for attending our Black History Month, our Black Employment Committee Special Emphasis Program Chair, Ms. Cindy Bradford, for facilitating getting this going, Ambassador Britton, Mr. Higdon, thank you all. Like you said, we have light refreshments, Taste of Soul, sponsored by the Veteran Canteen Service that's out there. And again, thank you for helping us celebrate Black History Month, and a personal thank you to Marines like you, Ambassador Britton, that paved the way for people like me.
Greetings, everyone, once again. This next dance we're about to do as you mingle is called John Don Wallace of Dawn. If you let your mind go on the journey with us, this piece is about slavery to freedom. So again, it's called John Don Wallace of Dawn. This is our last piece about slavery, from slavery to freedom. Thank you.